Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Meños podcast, episode 2. Today I'm going to be talking about a school of thought that I just got introduced to a couple years back. But it wasn't until when I started my job as a teacher that I started to really go down the rabbit hole with this philosophy. And I just think it's amazing and more people need to know about it. So I'm dedicating this episode, and more than likely there's gonna be a part 2 for this episode just because it's fucking dense. And yeah, I need more than one episode to get my whole points across. So without further ado, I will talk about the subject. It's Stoicism. So some of you may have heard of it, and some of you are probably like, what the fuck is Stoicism? So let me give you a textbook definition of that I stole from ChatGPT. Okay. Stoicism, an ancient Greek school of philosophy founded at Athens by Zeno of Citium. Zeno or Zeno, however you want to pronounce it. The school of thought that virtue is the highest good, is based on knowledge. The wise live in harmony with the divine reason. Parentheses. Also identified with fate and providence, that governs nature and are indifferent to the vicissitudes of fortune and to pleasure and gain. Yeah, it's a whole fucking mouthful. So let me just dumb it down for everyone. What it's basically saying is it's that it is what it is mentality. That complete state of self-discipline and not wanting for trivial things like money, power, etc., and just kind of being happy with what you have, but most important, following the 4 virtues of being a good person. So the Stoics argued that if you followed these 4 virtues, you were more than likely to live a very happy life. And I don't necessarily disagree with that statement, but I wouldn't say it's the only path to happiness, in my opinion. But I digress. So let me list the 4 virtues. I'm going to give you some background info on each one, and let you come up with own examples as well. But I'll just give you my examples. So the first of the 4 virtues is wisdom. So what the Stoics defined as wisdom was the knowledge of what's good and bad. So knowing what's right and wrong. And for them, anything regarding one of these virtues is good. And what's bad are the complete opposites of the virtues. Anything else other than that kind of falls into the indifferent category. It is what it is. Neither good nor bad. But let me explain the opposite. The opposite of wisdom is foolishness. And the Stoics felt that no one was really evil. They were just foolish and ignorant. And because of that headspace they possessed, they would do evil things. A perfect example of wisdom, in my eyes. How many of you have seen like Kung Fu Panda? Like Master Oogway, Poe's mentor? Yeah, he's the and Master Shifu's. Yeah, he was both of their mentors. But like that, like woke turtle, that like really, really wise turtle. Yeah, he's my version of what I think of wisdom. You know, because he's just so old and has like these one-liners that, and he always preaches to do good. So that's why I would say Master Oogway would be a good example for wisdom. And for the second virtue is courage. Now, I know what a lot of you are probably thinking, like, oh, it means courage on the battlefield or something along those lines. But it doesn't necessarily always just mean that. It also means, well, I'll tell you how the Stoics define it. they define it as the ability to face adversity with strength. So the opposite of this virtue would be cowardice. So you know what to do in a situation. For example, let's say someone's getting persecuted. Example we've all heard of, for example, is when Jesus was getting crucified, and the Pharisees went to the Romans, and Pontius Pilate could have done the courageous thing and the right thing and stand up to everyone and be like, no, he's a good person, he didn't do anything wrong, but he chose cowardice instead because he didn't want to deal with all the repercussions. Another good example I would like to use outside of Jesus would be if you've ever seen Game of Thrones, the main character, his name's Ned Stark in the beginning, like in the first season. Then they cut his fucking head off. Yeah, that shit pissed me off. But what I'm getting at is he could have lived had he just lied and just gave up the throne to that little bitch ass motherfucker Joffrey. But he chose to do the right thing, and he stood on morals and integrity, and that led to him getting his head cut off. So yeah, I mean, he's true to his word, and his reputation is what it is. But yeah, that's a good example of courage that I could think of. The third virtue is justice, and what that means is you treat others fairly and you act with moral integrity. So what's one simple thing? Okay, yeah, like you ever walk around like the mall as a kid, or even nowadays, and you see someone drop like a 20. The right thing to do, the thing with integrity, would be like, hey, you dropped your 20. A lot of people would just fucking pocket that shit and be like, hell yeah, came up on some In-N-Out. But that is an example of injustice. So justice is good, injustice bad. And then the fourth and last one would be temperance. In my opinion, this is probably the most important one. Just my personal opinion. I really admire this one, and more importantly, I admire people who possess this trait. Because it's something I do not fucking have. Like, I lack self-control in a lot of things. Yeah, I guess like a couple years back, I used to be a fucking pothead, like stoner, like any minor fucking inconvenience. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go spark one, or just I'd be bored, and I realized I was acting on impulse a lot and compulsion, and that's a lack of self-control. And the Stoics would say that's a huge no-no. You have to be aware of your thought process, control your thoughts, and in doing that, you also control your actions. And it isn't just self-control in regards to that. Like, I'm not embarrassed to say it. Like, looking back at past relationships I've had, sometimes I could have controlled myself a little better, whether it was things I've said or my lust, things along those lines. And that is something that the Stoics always preach. You got to be in control. So, which is why, in my opinion, that's like the number one of the four virtues that I really admire. And the opposite of that would be intemperance. So basically just going off impulse, feeding your lizard brain, like pleasure seeking, things along those lines. And the Stoics argue that would just lead to chaos and mental distraught. Now that I gave you guys the 4 key virtues of Stoicism, let me give you guys just the textbook definition of a virtue. I previously gave you guys the definition of Stoicism, But what does a virtue mean? So according to the Stoics, the virtue is the highest good a person can achieve. So if you're able to live your life in this manner, like with those 4 virtues in mind, you're going to live a happy life. So in order to true happiness, you have to abide by those rules. I don't necessarily think it's the only way to achieve happiness, but I do admire this school of thought. And honestly, if you live by those 4 things, your life is just going to be better. 100%. So I got introduced to this school of thought on Twitter. There was this page I used to follow, just because I don't use Twitter as much anymore. But it was this guy named Ryan Holiday, and he has a book called The Daily Stoic, and he gives a quote for every day, and on the bottom of the quote, it's a little reflection, his thoughts on it, his perspective, and I really like that because I'm a teacher, and I have a whiteboard in my room, and I have Mr. Vargas' quote of the day up there, and I come up with a new quote every day, and that's kind of like a little warm-up before I get the day started. I have a question that I have for my students, and then I give them 3 to 4 minutes to answer it, and then I'll draw their attention to my quote of the day. It's usually something stoic or maybe a little funny quote from Teddy Roosevelt or like George Washington, historical figures I admire. And we just talk about it for like a minute or 2. Then we just move on to the lesson. But here are some of my favorite Stoic quotes that I've written to my students. So let me just read them. The first one is, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. So I really fucking like that quote because it's so true. Like anytime I've gone through some hard shit in life, I've came out better at the other end. And it fucking sucks while you're going through some shit, but you always just have to remember, like, hey, this shit's gonna pass, you know? Well, I was alright before this shit happened, I'll be alright after. And what Seneca's basically saying is, embrace those difficulties in your life because it's gonna make you stronger. Like labor does the body, so like working out makes you stronger. So do hard things that happen in your life. They make you stronger in the head. And then another quote that I really like. Yeah, I think it's like 8 quotes that I wrote down. There's like hundreds of quotes, but these 8 in particular, I really like. So I'm sharing them with you guys. Another one. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It's all within yourself, in your way of thinking. That's by Marcus Aurelius. So I love that because you don't need much in this life to be happy, really. Like, I spent money on stupid shit, and it's cool for a minute, you know, but then it wears off, and you realize, this material shit, it ain't really shit, you know. It doesn't really satisfy as something like good relationships with people, with your friends and loved ones. Like, that can make you happy, and that doesn't cost anything, you know, just effort and love that you give out. So what he's talking about, it's all within yourself and your way of thinking. So if you're just constantly mad because, like, man, that guy over there, he has a Raptor, and fuck, I just have a fucking Corolla, what the fuck? If you're thinking like that, of course you're gonna be fucking miserable. But if your way of thinking is, fuck, man, like, I'm blessed, this thing has good gas mileage, it hasn't fucked up on me once, I could be walking to work like that poor guy over there, like, hey, man, life is good. And I love that. It's all in your way of thinking, and that's something you have complete control over. So that's a big thing of Stoicism, like I said earlier. Worry about what you can control. The rest, don't sweat it, because it's out of your control anyways. Another quote. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. That is fucking real. That is so fucking real. And I, for a fact, torture myself sometimes with some fake scenarios, and none of that shit ends up fucking happening. And you waste so much time and energy worrying about shit that you shouldn't be worrying about. Like, if it's gonna happen, it'll happen, and you roll with the punches and you'll figure it out. So I've done a better job at being mindful when I get in a headspace like that. I just kind of like slap myself a little bit. I'm like, bro, like, you're good. None of that shit's gonna happen. And yeah, I know for a fact I'm not the only person that does that. I've talked to my dad, and my dad's about to be 60 this year, and he tells me the same thing. He's like, we all do it. He's like, we all do it. It's not healthy, but I'm glad I'm seeing it from this perspective now. Another quote. No man is free who is not master of himself. And that one's by Epictetus. I really love that one because it's so true. If you can't even control your impulses, if you can't stick to a fucking schedule, if you can't stick to your fucking word, how are you going to master life if you can't even do those things for yourself? So master yourself, then you're going to be ready to have the world by the fucking balls. I love that quote. It's a good one. And then the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your thoughts. So you're going to see a lot of repetition, what seems like kind of saying the same thing, but that's the Stoics' basic Stoicism 101. Worry about things you can control. Like, there's no point in spending any time, energy, headspace over things you can't. And be confident in your ability to do things. They're not just, be passive. Like, you have to put in the work to be a good person and do the right things and do the best that you can do. And then after that, just let go. You did what you could, and if you prepared as you should, you did what you needed to do, more than likely you're going to succeed in whatever you're doing, whether it's a test, a relationship, a business, anything along those lines. Just do your best. And another quote, another one by the great Marcus Aurelius. To be honest, he's probably one of my favorite historical figures. Like, this guy's him. So today I escaped anxiety. Or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. And that's so real. Like I said earlier, a lot of the things that we stress about are shit that has never happened, or it probably won't happen. Or if it has happened, it's very unlikely to happen again, you know? And the Stoics aren't saying to live in like state of bliss and shit, but be aware of it, but don't obsess over these things, because nothing good comes from that. I think I got 2 more quotes. 3. All right. Another one. You become what you give your attention to, by Epictetus. That's the same thing. If you're constantly worrying about something, or you are thinking negative thoughts all the time, you're going to be a negative person. Whereas if you give your attention to the positive in your life and you practice gratitude, and man, life is good. It could be a lot worse. You're going to live a positive life, and positive things will come your way. A lot of people in the modern day talk about like manifesting, like visioning things in your head and then it coming to life. That's kind of what they're talking about here. If you give too much attention to something, you're basically just trying to put it out in the universe. So if something is haunting you in your mind that you don't like, just stop thinking about it. Change the fucking subject. Distract yourself. Go do something. Go on a walk. Go do something. It's terrible to ruminate. Another one. What I advise you to do is not to be unhappy before the crisis arrives. And that's Seneca. So the suck is going to come. and I would do that a lot. I remember I used to work at FedEx Ground when I was barely out of high school. And you have to load trucks by hand, if you guys don't know that. And that shit sucks fucking balls sometimes, because it would be really hot in those trailers. And I remember it would just be like a Sunday. And I'd just be in a pissy mood, because I'm like, fuck, man, I gotta work tomorrow. Then I'd be out with friends, and I wouldn't even enjoy being out, because I'm like, man, I gotta go to school and then work after. And I realized, damn, I've stole so much time from myself just by not being mindful. So, yeah, no need to suffer before the negative comes. It's gonna come. So just embrace the suck when it comes and enjoy the good while you can. And the last one. This one is really, really important to me, because I constantly tell myself this, and I'll share you guys what Marcus Aurelius said. Don't you see how much you have to offer, and yet you still settle for less? So I really love this movie by Robert De Niro. It's called A Bronx Tale. And he always tells his son the same quote throughout the movie. Son, there's nothing sadder in this world than wasted talent. And sometimes I'm kind of hard on myself. I'm like, man, am I really living to my full potential? Because I feel like I could be doing more. And that's when I've gotten better and I snap myself out of that. I'm like, hey, like, you're doing all right for yourself. So it could be worse. You could be like a fucking cokehead going to a rave like every other day, or a meth head or something along those lines. And I'm like, yeah, not too bad. Could be better. And that's good that we should have that mindset. You should constantly want to do better, but you shouldn't get attached to an outcome. And that's what the Stoics preach. So yeah, I like that one. Live to your full potential, guys. Live by those virtues, and everything else will fall into place. So like I said earlier, this is a really, really fucking dense school of thought, and I could talk about this for hours, but that would require a lot more work, and I will probably do that down the line, but I just want to give everyone some cliff notes on some of the Stoics. So we'll start with the first of them all, the guy who invented this school of thought. His name is Zeno of Citium. So he was born in the 300s BC, not 80. So this was a long time ago. And he was a wealthy merchant. He did really good for himself, to be honest. Like, he was able to afford ships, travel to different areas to conduct trade. But one day he lost like the vast majority of his fortune during a shipwreck. And as life progressed, he looked back at that trip and he said, honestly, that was probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me. It was a very prosperous journey. And someone's like, what? Like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, you lost all your money? And he's like, yeah, but if it wasn't for that, then I wouldn't have been introduced to philosophy. And I just thought that was crazy. Like, he lost all his money, but the perspective he gained in life, he's like, I'm still winning. And I love that. It kind of reminds me of, if any of you have read the Bible, the book of Job is my favorite book. If you haven't read that, you should take some time to read it, because it gives you a really good perspective on life. Like, hey, life is good. This guy lost his whole family, lost all his wealth, was getting tested by Satan, and he never forsake God. You know, he stayed true to himself and to the Lord. And eventually, God rewarded him. But he maintained a positive perspective. And I like that. It's all about perspective in life. You could be living homeless, and you can still be grateful in life. It's crazy. Some of those people are probably happier than those living paycheck to paycheck. It's less stress. Anyways, so Zeno, he had mentors, but like I said, he was the founder of Stoicism. So before Stoicism, there was a school of thought called Cynicism, and they advocated for life in accordance with nature. So no fucking thirst for power, fame, anything trivial like that. They wanted to live a sterile and plain life. Like, they would even go so far as to like let go of all material possessions. If you've ever seen Game of Thrones, they kind of remind me of like those people that whipped Cersei naked across the street, or like across the whole King's Landing. Like, all they would wear were those musty ass robes. Yeah, think of that as the cynics. They had no thirst for any worldly possessions. That was kind of extreme, honestly. One of Zeno's mentors was named Diogenes or something like that. And he would sleep in a large clay jug that was used for wine. And he had a quote that he'd always say is, "He has the most who is most content with the least." Meaning, whoever's happiest with the least is really the richest, you know? Because, yeah, there was this Instagram reel I saw a while back. And it was like, the billionaire longs for the ordinary life he once had. The millionaire longs for the private jet the billionaire rides on. The guy with the startup business longs to have that Ferrari that the millionaire has. The guy working a 9 to 5 job and riding his bike to work longs to have that Lexus that the startup company guy has. And then the guy on the hospital bed just looks at the guy riding a bike and he's just like, man. Oh no, I missed a step. Then the guy walking looks at the guy riding the bike and he's like, man, I wish I had a fucking bike, so I have to walk everywhere. And then the guy in the hospital bed just looks at the guy being able to walk outside, walking to work, like, man, I wish I could walk. Like, I'm dying here. So I really like that little metaphor because it puts things into perspective. No matter where you are, if your mindset's wrong, you're never really going to be happy, you know, because you're always going to want to strive for more. So that's not saying, like, don't be ambitious or anything, but don't beat yourself up too much if it's not going how you thought it would. Just keep working and eventually things might work out. So, yeah, that's the school of thought that the cynics and Zeno preached. So we've all gone through some things, right? Whether it's the loss of a loved one or relationship, money, etc. But always keep that in mind. These things will pass and shit will eventually get better. So also on Zeno, this guy. So just to add on Zeno and his school of thought, I really admire that lack of admiration for material shit, especially living here in America, bro. Like, fuck, everyone wants the newest iPhone, everyone wants a new car. You get a truck that's fucking nice, you're like, now I need some rims for this shit. Like, it's never enough. And I like that the philosophers were able to see that even 2,000 years ago. You know, material shit, yeah, it's cool and it'll make you feel good for a bit, but that shit will never satisfy you like real things, like your health, your loved ones, and peace of mind. Yeah, and to add on that, I was watching this interview with Pablo Escobar's son, and it was like a Colombian news channel or something. And he kept talking about how his dad was worth like $25 billion, but he didn't know 1 minute of peace. So he saw his dad and he's like, he doesn't seem happy, you know? And that's because it's like the Stoics were saying, like, all that material shit, like, it's useless if, like, you have no peace of mind. And that's how I interpret that. I'm not saying that money's terrible. Like, I'm not like preaching like some broke guy, like, oh yeah, like, you don't need money. But it's a vice you can never really get enough of, you know? Like, even the people with like $1 billion, like, man, how can I make this into 2 billion? And if you just have that mindset of not being content with what you have, then it could lead you down a miserable path. So in a way, like, when you look at it, the guy who works, or the girl that work a regular job, but they're okay with their life and the loved ones they have around them, in a way, they're richer than like the super ambitious millionaire who just wants more and more. It reminds me of this scene in Peaky Blinders. So if you haven't watched that show, you should check it out. That shit's dope. And the main character, Thomas Shelby, he's talking to Winston Churchill. And he's talking about the gardeners that do his yard. And he's like, they live in squalor and shit. They're like, they have like no money. Like all 3 generations of them. But they are happier than I will ever be in my life. And I was just like, dang, that's deep. So another quote in regards to that mindset by another Stoic philosopher. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get into this one, guys. I just allocated this one more for like Zeno and Marcus Aurelius. Zeno because he's a good like, he's the first one to start the school of thought. And Marcus Aurelius, well, he's my favorite, so that's why I had to throw him in for this one. But Epictetus says, he is a wise man who does not grieve for things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. So a wise man doesn't bitch and moan and bitch about things that he doesn't have, but he's happy for the things that he does have, and he's grateful for the things in his life. So in my opinion, that's what a rich man is. And just to give another example for the real world, if any of you watch UFC, I'm a fucking huge UFC fan. Like, this weekend's about to be fire. Poirier against Holloway. Poirier's last fight. Yeah. Little off topic, but one of the guys that Dustin Poirier fought was Khabib. And in one of these anatomy of a fighter videos, they went to Dagestan. And he was cutting weight. And he looked like all sucked out, like dry, dehydrated in the video. But it was after the weight cut. And then he was just like, I don't fight for money. Like, if they offer me $500,000 or the belt, like, I'm going to take the belt. He's like, I have food, I have water, I have God. Like, this is all I need in my life. And I like that because that just shows the mindset he has. It's a very stoic mindset, even though I'm pretty sure he wouldn't refer to himself as that. But it's the same school of thought as Stoicism. Appreciate what we have and don't obsess over wanting more. That's a big thing. And we could do that in anything. Like at work, you could be bummed out that you didn't get a promotion that you felt you deserved. And that might have you feeling some type of way. Money, you could see people you know or know indirectly, things along those lines, and you're hearing how good things are going for them, and you're kind of just like, man, like, what the fuck? But Same thing. It's like you're not appreciating what you have. Or even like relationships. Like wanting more from someone who's not reciprocating what you're putting down. Like, yeah, it sucks, but just be grateful you're able to spend some time with the person. And like the Stoics preach, just be content with what you have. Do the best that you can. And if things don't work out, then it is what it is. You did your best. You moved with the 4 virtues of Stoicism. So in the end, you never really end up losing in anything you do in life if you just follow those 4 virtues and you give it your all. So that was wrapping up Zeno. And now we're moving on to my favorite, my GOAT, Marcus Aurelius. So just a brief little background about him. He was born around the year 100. Like 100. And he ruled Rome from 161 through 180. And he was probably the most powerful man in the world while he was alive. Because Rome was it. Rome ruled the world. Like from London, England, around there, all the way to Persia. Like they ruled a lot of land. And this is why our government is still based off the government they had. And we're still learning about them to this day. So, just some more background information. He was known for being a Stoic emperor who cared deeply for the well-being of his people. The Roman citizens loved this guy too. And he avoided a lot of the riches that emperors had back in the day, especially the Roman emperors. They were fucking crazy. They would have like huge orgies in their villas. They would do whatever they wanted with slaves, even making them fight to the death. Like in the in Django, when they have like the Mandingo fights. Like that shit's based off real stuff. Like the Romans would do crazy shit like that. And he abstained from that shit. He lived a moderate life and he cared about his people. He didn't even want to be the fucking emperor. That's the crazy thing. That's been noted in history. If it was up to him, he would just be reading his books, chilling under a tree, being a philosopher. But he understood the position he was given and why the emperor before him bestowed him the throne. Because he knew the type of person this guy was. He was like, hey, this guy is going to be good for the empire. And that's why he's like, well, if I have to do it, it's my duty to do this. So I can't shield myself from duty because that would be an injustice. He knew it was for the greater good. And he had a teacher who introduced him to Stoicism as a kid. And this teacher was, I believe it was like his painting teacher. So back in the day, it isn't like now where you send your kid to fucking Casey Elementary School or something along those lines. Like, nah, like only rich people were able to do school. And those people had to send a tutor to their house. And that's the only way they were able to learn. Yeah, so this teacher Marcus Aurelius had introduced them to the Stoics. And Marcus fell in love with the philosophy. Like he went down the rabbit hole, reading a bunch of different Stoics, talking to other philosophers, to the point where he began sleeping on the floor. And he was wearing like these dirty ass clothes, kind of like the people I was telling you about, like in Game of Thrones, where the ones that were whipping Cersei across King's Landing, kind of like that. And it got to the point where his mom was just like, hey, you need to cut this shit out. Like, bro, you're a fucking high-class Roman. Like, hold yourself to a fucking standard. So he's like, all right, mom. Yeah, I'm probably going too far with this shit. He was still a kid, so kind of grew out of that phase. But yeah, that's how extreme he went. He was sleeping on the floor and wearing raggedy-ass clothes as like one of the richest citizens in the whole empire. And what I admire about Marcus Aurelius is he didn't have an easy life. Like, bro had it tough. Throughout his life, he had 14 kids. And by the time he died, only 5 were alive. So he buried 8 or 9 of his kids. And that's tough. in any aspect of life. And he's gone through things like betrayal. One of his trusted generals, Avidius Cassius, Marcus Aurelius was away from Rome. He was out there like fighting against the Germanic tribes in the Northern Empire. And one of his generals like, you know what? Fuck this fool. I'm gonna become emperor. So he tried to do a coup. And when Marcus Aurelius heard about it, instead of being like, fuck that, I'm going back, I'm gonna fucking decapitate this guy, I'm gonna skin him alive, whatever, he forgave him instantly. And decided to punish him, but in a non-severe manner. Like, he could have, like I said, fucking shoved gold down his throat like they did to Crassus, another rich Roman around Julius Caesar's time. Could have skinned him alive, could have decapitated him, could have crucified him, could have done whatever. And he chose to forgive him and give him a light sentence. The sentence was never carried out because, like, that guy was a fucking dick and his own people killed him. But that just showed the character that Marcus Aurelius had. He was just stoic, you know, no reaction. Like, why get emotional over that? He's like, people are people and they're going to strive for power. And he understood that. And he has a really famous quote. I see like a bunch of like these like relationship pages on Instagram steal it kind of in their own way. But I was like, this is Marcus Aurelius, guys. So his quote is, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. So I say it again. The best revenge is to not be like your enemy. And I was like, yeah, that's crazy. That's a good one. And some of you are probably thinking, damn, this fool sounds like a pussy because he didn't punish the guy who tried to take the throne. But it takes a lot more balls to be merciful and doing the right thing. Because in that sense, anyone would fucking do that, you know? Anyone can have that anger and do something emotional, like decapitate someone, make a spectacle. That's weakness, you know? It takes real strength to forgive and be merciful. Not saying he didn't punish him. He did plan on punishing him. But it wasn't going to be a spectacle. And that's why this guy's my GOAT. Like, he has... how he has been described, he's a master of his emotions. And like... a little off topic, but like I suck at that. Like sometimes I fly off the handle. I'll get annoyed at traffic or shit, a little TMI, but like I used to be like on and off with this girl, and like sometimes we would fight, and like I would say some shit that looking back, like when I like would calm down and calmer heads prevail, I was like, yeah, I fucked up. But that's why I admire these Stoics. They have the ability to manage emotions and come to good judgments and conclusions. So another example of him living by the 4 virtues, justice. He had a war in modern day Armenia. It's like well, you guys know where Armenia is. If you don't, look it up in a map. It's kind of by Turkey, the Caucasus area around there, around Dagestan, the Caucasus area. And they fought a war there, and it was like a bloody war. So he was worried about the impact it had on his troops, and he created programs to help assimilate them back into Roman society in the most healthy and efficient way. Like that's him. That's that guy. Like, he cared about the regular infantry soldier he had there and him being the emperor. And also, under his reign, there was a plague that was going around killing 2,000 people per fucking day. That's fucking scary. And acting on the Stoic virtue of justice and compassion, he decided to allocate a bunch of the taxes and everything to help the people. a lot of emperors would just be like, oh, well, fuck them, you know? Like, I'm going to still have my fucking orgies and drink my wine and do whatever I want to do. He did the exact opposite. He allocated funds, and when he started to get friction from other elites, he started selling off his own possessions to give the money to the poor people who were dying. And that is why he's my fucking GOAT. He's awesome. I'm going to do a whole episode just on him down the line. But I felt like it'd be good to introduce you guys to Stoicism first before we transitioned into Marcus Aurelius and him only. So the main concept they preach, most of the Stoics, is dichotomy of control. And I'll explain that in simple terms again. I talked about it earlier, but it's basically knowing what you can control and what you can't control, and whatever you can't control, don't fucking worry about it. You're just gonna stress yourself out. For what? Like, you have no control over other people's actions, their thoughts of you, external things like the weather. So why stress about it? Like, I'll give you guys an example. I went to New York just last week, and it was raining. And I saw it was raining before I took my trip, and it kind of killed my mood for a bit. I'm just like, man, fuck. Like, I'm really going to New York, and it's going to be fucking raining when I'm out there? Like, bro, that trip's going to suck, because then I'm going to be all wet. I could get sick. I was just playing these scenarios in my head. And then I had to stop myself and just take a step back and be like, bro, like, it's saying that, but, like, how many times has it said that here, and then it never ends up fucking raining? And I'm just like, yeah, I guess it could not end up raining. And sure enough, I get to New York, and there was no fucking rain. The first day, it rained at night a bit, but it wasn't even hard rain. There was still people around. And then the other days, it wasn't even raining. And I'm glad I was able to just have that little pity party for a bit in my head and just move on. But this has taken practice for me to develop this. Another example, like, you know, I've had relationships in my life, and sometimes shit doesn't work out, you know? And you could catch yourself, like, thinking, like, man, I wonder what this person's up to. Damn, who's she with, etc. Should I call her? And then you just have to take a step back and realize, like, bro, all that shit's out of my control. If she's gonna go out, she's gonna go out. There's no point in me fucking crying a river about it, or, like, being in my head about it. Like, it does no good. So the best thing to do is just realize that's out of your control and just let it go. And do your own thing. Do things that are productive and that will take your mind off shit. That's how I thought about it before I started going into Stoicism. And I realized, yeah, you could literally live life in an efficient manner just following those 4 virtues. And the dichotomy of control, knowing what you can and can't control. So the Stoics, in particular Epictetus, he has a quote. Let me try and find it here. Yeah, this one. Epictetus, just a fun fact though, I'm going to go into him for sure for the next episode. But he had an interesting life. He was born like in modern day Turkey. And this dude was a slave. And he eventually got his freedom. So his perspective is really cool. And he's one of the more interesting Stoics because a lot of them were well off. You know, in order to be educated and shit, you had to be like well off back then. Like, not everyone, there was no public school back then. It was just strictly, you were rich, you can afford a tutor and things along those lines. So that's why I like his work a lot, because he has that perspective of being a slave and then being a free man and then being a philosopher. So let's go to his quote. He states, "Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing, not within our power, our body, our property, reputation, office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. Simple as that. So just worry about yourself and things you can't control. And really, at the end of the day, all you can really control are your thoughts and how you perceive things. So like I mentioned earlier, if something were to happen, let's say you wanted to go to Carl's Jr. or something, and that thing's closed, you could sit there and pout about it, or you could just be like, you know what? I worked out today, and Carl's Jr. is kind of unhealthy. Chipotle's right here. Still good. Yeah, why not? You know, just have a positive attitude. There's a cool saying that I've heard before, like in movies, and it's don't sweat the small stuff in life. And remember, it's all small stuff. So they're big on wasting time and energy worrying about things you can't control. And in the main thing, in my opinion, nowadays, especially with social media and everything, we could kind of get in our head thinking too much what others perceive about us, or comparison. That's another cool quote. Comparison is the thief of joy. So just be content with what you have and do the best you can in life, and shit will eventually work out for you. I'm a firm believer of that. You keep working and you handle business, shit's going to work out for you. So the school of thought teaches people they can only truly control their mind and life. And I'm not saying that the Stoics were like nonchalant, like they just let life pass them by and they get walked over on. Like, no, not at all. Like Marcus Aurelius was the emperor. He was a general, like a lot of these people. And the other philosophers were also people of high regard. And that's where I'm getting at. They know what they had to do, but they didn't spend so much time worrying about the outcome. They just worried about their ability to handle business and let go after that. So, like, for example, there's this fighter I really like. His name's Ilia Topuria. And I was watching one of these UFC embedded videos. And they were asking him, like, bro, why are you so confident and calm? And he's like, I seem that way because, like, I don't really care about the outcome. Like, he's like, to me, the outcome's set in stone already. He's not really stoic in that sense. He's just ultra confident. But in a way, it's kind of like what the Stoics were talking about. The outcome's already for sure. Like, it's gonna happen. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. So there's no point in you stressing about it. And he's like, I did everything to the best of my ability. So I know when the time comes, I'm gonna handle business. And that's exactly how the Stoics were. Train what you need to train. Fucking handle business. Study. Do whatever you need to do. Because when the time comes, you're gonna be prepared. And that will give you some peace of mind. I really like that. And basically, just to finish it off, they didn't care what life threw at them. It's all about doing your duty, playing your part well, and stepping back knowing the result is going to be what it's going to be. They can't control everything. And you have to let go of controlling the outcome, because all that's going to do is cause you to lose your mind. So, 2 finishing quotes from people, in my opinion, who were Stoics, but just like 2,000 years later. So the first one, one of my favorite presidents, for sure top 5. I would say top 3. Teddy Roosevelt. His quote is, do what you can with what you have where you are. So, don't Don't be like, man, I wish I had this. Man, if only I brought this with me, or why didn't it work out this way? Don't worry about that. Just do what you can at the moment that you're present with what you have in front of you and where you're at. And that's a very stoic way to view things. And the last quote, one of my favorite podcasters, his name is Jocko Willink. He was a commander in the Navy SEALs. And he has a podcast where he interviews a bunch of different people and goes over history books. He's really cool. And his quote is amazing. There's a video on YouTube you guys should all check out that talks about the quote. So I'll just give you the quote. It's good. That's it. And what he means by that is he gives a bunch of scenarios. Oh man, I got hurt. Like I rolled my ankle. I'm not going to be able to train. Like, good. It gives you time to hone your mind now. You know, you were focused on mind and body. No, now your body's out of commission for a couple weeks. Good. Use the time wisely. Get into your head. Start reading more. You know, work up upper body. Don't just be pouting around. Another one like, man, me and my ex didn't work out. Good. Gives you an opportunity to find yourself. Gives you an opportunity to improve on yourself. And eventually, you can find someone better. So good. Another one, man, we didn't make it to the championships this year. Good. It gives you more time to train. More time to get better. So then next year, you might win. And I just love the simplicity of that. Could give a long ass paragraph talking about everything, but just leave it at this. Good. Yeah. That's all I got, guys. Till the next podcast. Hopefully sooner than later. But I'll keep you guys updated. I'll catch you guys later.